Welcome into the first ever episode of the Storm the Sky podcast. Storm the Sky podcast is brought to you by Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's is a proud supporter of Southern Utah Athletics and the Storm the Sky podcast. Get freaky fresh, fast sandwiches today. Order online or with the app for freaky fast delivery. Jimmy John's is your presenting sponsor of the Storm the Sky podcast. Episode 1 coming up. We've got a great panel. We got a great conversation here about COVID-19 and NCAA sports. Let's get to it. Episode 1, Storm the Sky podcast starts right now.
Southern Utah.
Welcome into the debut episode of the Storm the Sky podcast here on SUTbirds.com. Thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to get this rolling. Not exactly how we thought it would look when we started planning it out a couple months ago, but we're here. We're excited to get it going, and we've got a great panel here for our first episode where we're talking about college sports and COVID-19. So we're really excited to get this conversation going, and we got 3 great guests with us today. First, we got Dre Marine from the Southern Utah men's basketball team, Morgan Alfaro from the Thunderbird Gymnastics team, and Deputy Athletic Director Todd Brown, who also oversees our sports medicine staff here at SUU. So we got a really good group here, and we'll kind of set the stage for this conversation. Obviously, talking about COVID, we'll go all the way back to the beginning when, things started shutting down. Just kind of a little background for everybody where everyone was at that. Morgan, you were here in Cedar City. You guys were getting ready for a big road meet at BYU. The other 3 of us were all in Boise at the basketball tournament. And Dre, we'll kind of start with you there. You guys beat Idaho. Less than 24 hours later, another game hasn't been played, and we're on a bus back to Cedar City. What was going through your mind?
It was a whirlwind. It was a whirlwind because, that night after we played our game, we got back and we were watching film. And in the middle of watching film, we actually found out that NBA canceled. And then at that point, we were all in our head okay, this doesn't look very good. And then I think it was the NHL canceled the rest of their season. And then it was just more. And then the next morning, Big Ten canceled their conference tournament. And then we're all down at breakfast, and Bryce comes down. He's like, hey, it looks good that we're going to play. And we're all good as of now. And then Dan was there. He said the same thing. So we go about, eat breakfast. I go back up to my room, get my little pregame nap in. And then I wake up from my nap, and Yvonne FaceTimed me. He was downstairs with the coaches. And he said, hey, it's canceled. And I was just like, are you serious? Went downstairs, and we had a meeting. And then about 2 hours later, we were on the bus headed back to Cedar City.
Tell you what, that was about the wildest 24 hours I can ever remember experiencing. That. Me and McKay were in the back of your guys' film room just scrolling on Twitter, just waiting for any type of news to drop. Morgan, you guys being here in Cedar City, and then obviously your meet with BYU gets canceled the next day. Just what was that like? What kind of conversations were you guys having amongst the team? And what were you guys talking about during that period?
It was crazy, honestly. I remember waking up and I saw that other gymnastics programs stopped. They were just done. They were like, our season's canceled. We're not having any more meets, the whole 9 yards. And I just remember we were texting Scott, and it was the whole team in a group chat. And Scott was like, it's okay. We still look good. He was talking to the BYU head coach because it was BYU's senior night for that meet. And they were like, well, we don't want to skip out on senior night. We want to honor our seniors. So they were like, maybe no crowd. We're going to try to do everything we can. We were all hopeful. We were going to have a BYU meet. We were going to go. We were going to practice. Because I remember Scott was texting us, I think it was Thursday, because I think that's when SU said that they were going to go online as well. And I remember he was texting us updates. Autumn was texting us updates too, because she was in some of the meetings, and we were just trying to figure everything out. And then Scott came out with a text saying, girls, I'm sorry, season's done. And I remember I like walked outside because I was in a class, and I like took a step out and I like called him and I was like, "Are you serious?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, this cannot be happening. I like was just in so much awe. Just it happened in a span of 2 hours. I feel like our season was cut in 2 hours. And he texted all of us, like the seniors and the leadership council, and he was like, "What do you think we should do as like our final goodbye to the seniors? Like, I'm sorry it ended like this." And we went into the locker room and like we sat there and we watched our film from like when we well, it was like the meet where we beat the team, we broke the school record for the team. And I remember we went back and we watched all those and like we reminisced on all the good times. And like the senior class, they were strong about it. Like they were like, "You know what, like I'm glad like this was the team we went out with. Like we wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Like you guys are girls, like all this and that." And then like we just kind of had like a team bonding moment in our locker room, and that was about the end of season for us.
Todd, what do you remember from that stretch of time, the conversations as an administration that were being had, kind of behind the scenes as to what things were going to look like?
At first it was kind of interesting, as you mentioned. It was with the basketball team. We were there. We hard fought game against Idaho. Had to scratch and claw to get that one out of there. I remember Dre going into that, feeling a little anticipation against I can't even remember the guy's name on Idaho. They knew this guy was just going to go off. He's all out saying, "Hey, this is probably my last game. I'm not holding anything back." And that guy played lights out, and it took a total team effort. And it was kind of a relief to get through that and think, all right, we're still alive, and I like our path. There was a pretty big high. The team felt it, everyone felt it, and there was a little bit of the talk about how will this affect things. And I think everyone went to bed not thinking there was going to be an issue. We woke up the next day, you start hearing things. And what I remember, Bryson, is being in the same room with you in the conference room. We're talking about, okay, what is this going to do for our other sports? What kind of things we're going to have to look at, adjust. And we're trying to plan this all out. And I think what happened in those few hours became very poignant and predictive of how the next few months and even we're operating now. You're in there trying to plan for something and trying to adjust for things that might happen and you just don't know. And then something happens and everything changes and you're re-evaluating everything. But I remember being in that room, having these conversations, and I'm almost certain that it was you, said to us, "They're taking down the banners in the stadium." And I thought, okay, this is getting real. What's going on? Why did we not even know? And it was probably about 15, 20 minutes later that President Wyatt called Debbie, the athletic director, and just said, "Hey, we're done." And we quickly met and said, "What's the plan?" And it's like, let's get packed up, let's head home, and let's talk about this. And that was, you left that room kind of somber and wondering how it's going to impact someone like Dre, where you're thinking, hey, we've got a great path. This is going to be great. Let's get out and let's ball out today and see where things go. And the next thing you do is you're on a bus heading home. I remember walking up to our room, and I was rooming with the strength coach. He was in there getting ready. "Hey, how are things going?" I talked to him. I said, "Hey, you might want to just start packing up. It got canceled. We're heading home. We're loading up in a half an hour, 45 minutes." And just the look on his face was the shock. And that was a very surreal bus ride home. Just one of those moments when the world changed and you didn't know exactly how it was going to change, but you knew the world knew it changed. And it was very surreal and kind of somber.
Taking a quick break here to tell you about Pallet Bakery. Pallet Bakery is a proud sponsor of the Storm the Sky podcast. Pallet Bakery and Ice Cream Parlor offers special promotions to SU students and staff. Just show your school ID for buy one, get one half off. Pallet Bakery is located at 255 North Main Street, across from Main Street Park. Once again, Pallet Bakery, a proud supporter of the Storm the Sky podcast. That bus ride was wild from the standpoint that me and Debbie, again, our athletic director, kind of blocked out the first two seats because we both needed to have our laptops plugged in. We both needed our phones plugged in. And I didn't stop working from Boise until we stopped in Utah County. Like that whole time, I was just on my laptop doing something. And it was just a wild sequence. Dre, for you, when you kind of look back on that, Todd alluded to the unknowns. You guys had won that game. You had Northern Colorado next. You had beaten them last year, and you were playing the best basketball you had played that season. How long did it take for you to stop thinking about what could have happened, or have you, or is that still something that you think about kind of regularly?
In the moment, it was very defeating because we felt like we worked so hard and we were playing our best basketball at the right time. And for me, what hurt me was it was my last game with the seniors, like Big Andre, Camo, Dwayne, Dave. And it just it took a long time for it to just sit in and, think about our season really just ended like that. And it was hard at first, but, just like everything, you got to roll with the punches and then move on. And so, honestly, at this point, I'm all in. I'm just, worried about making this, if we get the opportunity to play, making this a great season and going out and trying to win a championship, because that's all you can do now. You can't dwell on the past too much. It was tough, because, I love playing with those guys, but it was the way it went and just had to deal with it.
Do you remember some of the things they were saying, kind of the conversations you guys were having on the bus ride home, or were they just trying to not think about it?
We honestly, on the bus ride home, we talked about it very minimal. We just chopped it up back there and had fun. Just, try to make the best of a crappy situation, just not what any of us wanted to do, how any of us wanted to go out. But the bus ride home it was fun, and we just made the best of it.
Morgan, by the numbers, last year's gymnastics team was the best one we've had. So kind of when you look back on that, the same question I asked Dre, just how often do you think about what could have been at regionals for you guys?
I think for us, because like Dre said, like we put in the work in summer, we put it in like preseason, like we put in the work to have the best season of our lives. And last season was the best season I think our gymnastics program has had in a while. And we were breaking school records. We were breaking individual records, event records. Like we were going through the books and just smashing all the records that year. And going into conference, we were feeling confident. Like we've peaked at the right moment. We had BYU in conference. Like that's what we had left until postseason and regionals and stuff like that. And we peaked at the right moment. We were doing everything in our power to keep our bodies healthy, to like just maintain what we've been doing in the gym and putting it out on the floor. And going into conference and BYU, we were like, there is no doubt in our minds that we could win. We were going in there thinking, this is our year. Like there is no one team that's a standout, or like there was nothing. Like it was anyone's game at that point. Like there was, and with it being cut short, and like Dre said, like it was sad because it was the last meet with the seniors. That's the class we grew up with, and that's the class we saw grow up with us. And just with them being done the way that it was done and it was cut short, they handled it like champs. Like I said, they wanted the best for us, and they said next year's your guys' season. And I think just like Dre said as well, like we don't dwell in the past, but we do know that it was unfinished. Like we are unfinished, and we need to prove it this year that it wasn't a fluke year. Like we're going to come back better and stronger this year and smash all those records we did last year and do it again.
So obviously all the season gets canceled. School gets canceled pretty quickly after that. Everybody disperses, heads home. What were those next couple of weeks like?
I think it was crazy, honestly. There was so many unknowns at that point. Scott was like, we might still stay in Cedar and like we could still practice, like we could still do this and that. And then he texted us and he was like, ladies, go have a spring break. Like we don't have a spring break normally with season because we're on the road, or and he's like, go have a spring break and then we'll talk about gym and stuff like that later. And then everything was online, and Scott at that point was just like, you know what, ladies, go home. And so I remember I quickly packed up my bags and I headed home, and I was on my drive home. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally going home right now where I should be competing. I should be practicing in the gym right now. Like I'm going home because everything got shut down. And it was more mind blowing, I think, and more surreal. And I felt like it was a dream for like the first few weeks. Like I felt like I was going to wake up and Scott was going to like text us and be like, all right, ladies, like we're good to go, like come back, and that wasn't the case.
Dre, what was the transition to online school like? Because obviously, we talked about seasons getting canceled, but you guys still had a semester to finish up, and all of a sudden you weren't sitting in a classroom anymore.
It actually ended up for us being a good thing. We actually finished with our highest team GPA since Coach Simon has been here. I believe in a semester it was like 3.2 as a team, which was very good. Dudes actually really buckled down and stayed focused and got what we needed to get done. So I was actually proud of how we handled everything. But just like Morgan said, it was just so surreal that I remember when we got back, we had a meeting. Coach was like, yeah, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks and then come back. And then 2 weeks turned into 3 and 4. And then next thing we knew, we were home for 4 months. So it was crazy, but everyone handled it in stride and did what we needed to do.
Taking a quick break here to tell you about Bullock Drug. Thank you to Bullock Drug for being a proud sponsor of Southern Utah University Athletics and the Storm the Sky podcast. Bullock Drug is located in downtown Cedar City, and Township Pharmacy is located near the hospital just off North Main in Cedar City. All your prescription needs and much more can be cared for at both locations. Bullock Drug and Township Pharmacy, proud supporters of the Storm the Sky podcast. And now back to the show. Todd, aside from us all trying to figure out how to use Zoom, those couple weeks after everything got canceled administratively were crazy too. What kind of were some of the biggest standouts from that time period where, we got coaches and student athletes that want answers and, we have nothing but questions?
It was very difficult, and it emotionally it probably had some wear and tear on a lot of things, but as you kind of took the onion, for lack of a better way of describing it, and started peeling things back, it's allowed for some good perspective to really kind of creep back in to life. For the first little while, I think it was a nice little bit of break, but then people started to get a little stir crazy. I've got probably the best athletic training staff you could ever imagine having at an institution of our size. Guys and girls who just love to work. They love to get in there and just grind. They love their jobs, and they love being around student athletes. And all of a sudden you take their world, and I can only imagine what the student athletes are going through too. You take their world and you just put an axe to it and just chop it down, and everything stops. And it's really given a chance. And what I've kind of noticed through the process is you really had to start evaluating what are the most important things that we do. And let's try and focus on the things that we do right, because we don't know how this is going to progress. We don't know how it's going to go, but what's going to make us get through this is really pay attention to the small things and make sure we're focusing on the right things. It became very clear that if you're going to be reactionary to everything that's going on around you and in this environment, you're going to get left behind. You have to be proactive, knowing that the direction you're trying to go ahead may not come to fruition and it may not work, but you've got to be going in that direction, because if you just sit and wait for this whole thing to unfold and wait for it to be done, you're going to be so far behind that you can't catch up. And so from an administrative standpoint, that became probably the hardest thing to do, is say, hey, we've got to take what information we have and we've got to make decisions. We've got to move forward. We can't just sit here and say, well, we've got some information, but we don't have all the information. So let's not do anything until we have all the information. If we had done that, we still would not have our student athletes back on campus. I think we would have really paused the brakes and say, well, let's just wait until everything clears up and then move forward. But we've got to try and fight, and we're going to fight for the kids. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're protecting their health and wellness, but we're still fighting for them to have the opportunities that they feel they want to have. And I feel our job is to be able to do that, present those opportunities and provide them with the opportunities to participate, but make sure that we're doing it in a way that doesn't put their health and safety and wellness in jeopardy.
Trey, going back to what you said, when Coach said, we'll be gone for 2 weeks, we'll come back. That turned into 3, that turned into a month, and then that turned into months, plural. When you look back on that time, obviously you guys met via Zoom. I know that was something men's basketball and gymnastics did. Kind of walk me through those. What were those meetings like when you guys were all apart, but you were getting together a couple times a week for a few hours. Jerry, we'll start with you. Just kind of what did you guys learn through those Zoom calls when you guys were just, all trying to figure it out together?
Well, we were actually very fortunate to have a lot of good guest speakers come on. Like we had Jimmer Fredette. We had a professional baseball player come on, one of the Levitts, one of the guys who runs the Levitts group, and we just it was a learning experience. We got to meet all the new dudes and got to hear advice from multiple different people who have made it and been successful. So honestly, for me, I was just taking notes the whole time, just trying to absorb as much information as I could. And just like what Todd Brown was saying, wasn't a time just to sit back and relax and just let the time go by and wait for the dust to settle. And I feel like we did a good job of staying ahead of the curve. And we talked about basketball. We had meetings where we were going over, what we want our season to look like, goals we have, getting our system in place for all the new dudes. And by the time we got here, honestly, it felt like I knew everyone. It felt like everyone had a good grasp on our system and how we want to play. And we hit the ground running. And it's been I think it went great. And I think we're seeing the results right now in practice and in the weight room, just how good everyone's doing and how well everyone's gelling.
Morgan, same question for you, but first I want to know how long it took Scotty to figure out how to effectively run a Zoom call.
Oh, man. Let's just say Jamie was escaping grace a few times. No, but I think what it was mostly for Zoom is obviously we all had questions, like when can we come back? When can we start training? What are things going to look like? And everyone didn't know. Like the coaches didn't know. And I know that Scott, being Scott, he was trying to stay on top of it as much as he could. He wanted to be the first one to know. And he would let us know right away kind of thing. And no one knew. No one had answers. But over Zoom, when we all logged on for the first time, it's like we never left. And it just shows like our team bond and our team chemistry was just there the whole entire time. And it's not like we're faking it out on the floor. Like it's real. And it's like, it's all like we were back in Cedar together again, just on Zoom kind of thing. But like Todd Brown said, we all go from go. Like we wake up early, we go to weights, we go to school, we go to practice, like treatment, sleep, and repeat. Like we do it again. And then with this COVID thing, it was cut, like stopped. And like I just remember like waking up and I was like, all right, what do I do? Like I've done, like school's over, like everything's closed where I'm from. Like what do I do now? Like there's nothing to do. And fortunately, Marcus would like send us our workout. So like we would go and like we'd work out outside or like in our garage or stuff because like gyms and everything like that were closed. But I think that helped us with our fitness. And for gymnastics, it's hard because it's not like we can pick up a ball and go out and like play and like practice or whatever. Like we can't kick a soccer ball, we can't throw a football, we can't shoot a basketball. Like we need our equipment kind of thing. So I think the fact that we were able to physically stay in shape has helped us in the gym. And it's really like made us appreciate the times we've had in the gym and like just be grateful that even though our team is split up into two groups, so like we can stay like 6 feet apart and make sure like we're staying safe in the gym and wearing our mask at all times. Like it still is. Every time we go in the gym, we soak it in and we don't take it for granted. And I think with COVID happening and our season being cut short, it opened people's eyes to being like, wow, I had this and now I don't anymore. Like I can't take it for granted anymore. Like I'm with the people I love and I have bonds with, and I'm able to do the sport I love. I'm grateful for it. And like just being able to take it now and soaking it all in, it just makes the sport and hopefully having a season for my last year just so much more. Like it's bigger than gymnastics and it's bigger than everything. Like this is like we want to go out with a bang and just do it again.
Taking a quick break here to talk about Best Western. Thunderbird fans, if you're traveling in from out of town, be sure to book your next stay at Best Western Plus or Best Western Town and Country Inn. Both are conveniently located only a few blocks from campus and offer a 20% SUU discount. That's Best Western Plus and Best Western Town and Country right here in Cedar City. And now back to the show. This is probably a question that'll make Todd cringe a little bit, but Dre, how much basketball were you playing when you were home? Like, did you have a hoop at your house? Were you going to the high school? How much basketball were you able to play?
Well, at first, when everything was shut down, my dad actually bought a hoop, and we got a hoop in the driveway, just like back in the day. And I was just out there with my dad, and we were just shooting. Then it got a little hot, so then but we got lucky, and I was able to get back in the gym. And then things started opening back up, and I had a trainer who had a gym that I was able to get into. And honestly, I don't want to upset Todd, but I was around a lot of guys playing a lot of basketball when I was home. And for me, I was just truly, I was lucky, I was blessed, because I know a lot of people didn't have that opportunity. And I knew I had to take advantage of it. So I stayed in the gym as much as I could. And I think it's really paid off.
Todd, I think that's a good transition to.
Yeah, it doesn't upset me at all. That's why I trust completely our athletic training staff and put some good protocols in place that I think really have safeguarded our student athletes and help them understand the seriousness of this. And that's why we did, we understand that people had to live life and had to start trying to get back to normal things. But at the same time, coming back here, we need to make sure they're safe and protected. And that's why we put a quarantine time in place where you come back to Cedar City, we let you sit for a while, and we're going to test you. And then if everything clears, then let's get you back and let you start participating with people here. And let's make sure we're creating a safe environment. But absolutely doesn't bother me. That's the reality of what we knew was going on. And I think that's why I'm grateful for the two head athletic trainers we have, Michaela Dilgis and Nate Lower. They're fantastic, and they did a phenomenal job from top to bottom, just digging in and really pulling out, I think, a very thorough plan that has done a good job. And I can't thank them enough for the job that they did. That having a staff like that you could put complete trust in, having worked with them and knowing the detail with which they do their job, I never had a doubt that what they were going to put together was going to make sure our student athletes would be safe when they came back. And so having trust in staff like that and knowing that they have the best interest of the student athletes at heart gives me confidence that we're heading down the right path. And as long as I listen to their guidance and their direction and the things that they want and feel are important for us to do, I think we're going to be okay. So, no, great. Sorry, Morgan, you didn't get to just go buy a beam and throw it in the backyard, or a vault, run away with a big kid. Dre had the luxury of grabbing a new hoop and getting out there, and hopefully he starts beating it. Hopefully he's been beating his dad for a number of years. His dad, he has a few years younger than me in high school here at Cedar High, but hopefully it's been a few years that he's been taking it to his dad, and his dad's not taking it to him anymore. But, we understood that was happening, and that's why we put the protocols in place that we did.
And Todd, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I feel like that's kind of when it felt like there was extra pressure on the athletic department when, gyms are opening up. So our athletes were going to your local, gyms, or, going and playing pickup at rec centers, or even for gymnastics, some club gyms were opening. So Morgan, you or some of your teammates could have gone back to your old club gyms and tried to do some things. Todd, I felt like that was when we kind of really had to put the pedal down and, start getting things moving faster than they had been.
There were, it kind of came out with a little bit of short notice that the NCAA opened up kind of the restrictions to where you could start allowing kids to participate in voluntary activities on campus again, and they could start doing summer carrot if they could, their countable hours. Of course, we had coaches pushing right away to say, we want June 1, but we had to make sure we did it right. And so we kind of looked at the process, got everything dialed in with information we had, and said June 15th is when we feel we can kind of start allowing this process to happen, and here's how we're going to phase things in. But I think you're right. It pointed to the bigger issue. There was pressure to get the kids back here. But at the same time, we owe it to the student athletes and this community and the institution to make sure that we just weren't going to say, wow, it's open, come on back, open arms, let's just pretend that this thing doesn't exist. We had to make sure that we were doing it in a safe manner. And so it did. We took some time. We weren't going to drag our feet and be the slowest. We were going to work through the process as expeditiously as we could, as thoroughly as we could, to make sure that what we put in place was something that we were comfortable with. And so I think we did. But yeah, And that kind of added to the debate. What you brought up is the debate the coaches were having within themselves. Is it better for me to get my kids here where I feel I can have a little bit more control over the things that are going on, or better to leave them where they're at? Not only from, are they training the right way they should be training, but in terms of their social interactions with other people, where is it more likely for us to have a better impact on helping them understand the importance of all the things that we're talking about, wearing masks, social distancing, avoiding large gatherings, those types of things. So it kind of created that debate, and ultimately I think we ended up in the right place and did it at the right time.
Morgan, when you guys were able to finally come back on campus and get back in the practice gym, I mean, what kind of emotions did you feel when you were able to finally do that?
Oh my goodness, Scott sent us a text and I packed my bags right away. I was ready. Like, for us, for gymnastics, we're not used to taking a lot of time off. Like, we're used to taking a month off in the summertime and about 5 days off for Christmas. Like, that's the breaks we get. And so taking the whole 4 months, however long we took, we were all itching to get back to the gym as soon as possible. So as soon as Scott sent us the text saying June 15th is when we could come back, we all packed our bags and we were out. We were ready to come back to Cedar, and Scott was like, there's going to be some rules we have to follow. Like, you're going to have to wear your mask when we're like training and running and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, it's not my favorite thing to do when I'm trying to suck in air. I'm sucking in cotton a few times. Like, it is not my favorite thing, but we're willing to do whatever we can to have a season. Like, we weren't going into the pits until we got the okay from our trainers, and we wipe down our mats after we use them. We only rotate with our roommates because that's who we're in close contact with. And no matter, and to the athletic trainers, like, to their benefit, like, it doesn't matter who you are. You could be a junior, senior, sophomore, or a freshman. If you don't follow the guidelines, you have to quarantine again. Like, they are here for your best interest, and they want everyone to have a season. That is their end goal, and they're trying to do everything in their power to have that. And same with the coaches. And I think us as athletes, we are realizing it, and we are willing to do whatever we can, like, whether it's wearing a mask whenever we leave anywhere in Cedar, or like going to the store wearing a mask, or wiping down the mats after we use them. Like, that is a hassle, but we are willing to do it because we want to have a season, So I think for us, it was more of we wanted to get in the gym, we were itching to get in, and we were ready to go as soon as we got the okay.
Taking a quick break here to tell you about Pioneer Floor Coverings and Design. Pioneer Floor Coverings and Design Center is the premier flooring provider in Southern Utah. Stop into their Cedar City store located on Sage Drive to find amazing prices, unique design options, and incredible service for all your flooring needs. Pioneer Floor Coverings and Design, a proud supporter of the Storm the Sky podcast. And now back to the show. Dre, I can't even run up and down a court twice. Normally, you guys are doing it consistently with masks on. What have those type of changes been like for you guys, having to implement those on a day-to-day in practice?
It can be tough just because, like what Morgan was saying, having a mask on and you're running up and down the court, you're trying to catch your breath and having a little bit more of a difficult time doing that. But if it's something that we have to do to ensure that get the best chances of having the season, and we're going to do it, and we'll continue to do it until that happens. So for me, it's just, and I'm not going to lie, the mask, comes down below the nose a little bit by the end of the workout. Sometimes it be on my chin, but then we huddle back up and we're in close contact. Everyone gets their mask back up, and, we just follow protocol the best we can because, just like what Morgan was saying, we're all in it. The trainers are in it. The coaches are in it. The players are in it to have a season, and that's what we're all fighting for.
Todd, you're one of the people that are having to work to enforce these with the student athletes. Obviously, like Dre said, masks come down every once in a while, probably not a big deal, but, on a day-to-day, what are you seeing from coaches and student athletes? How much have they embraced, these changes they've had to make?
I think it's a little bit interesting. I think you could probably ask the student athletes that. I think there's a growing process and learning process, and I think there's wake-up calls, just like with everything else, that because you're not seeing the effects of it or something, it's almost somehow you may have forgotten about what the shutdown was like, and you want life to return to normal. And so the difficult part is saying, hey, this can still happen. I think there's little things that happened over the summer, a few things that happened that kind of woke some of our student athletes up. But not everyone here was here to see that take place and to see those things happen. So I think there's little micro groups that still, as kids continue to come back and we have more kids come back as we're starting school, there's going to be some little wake-up calls. And I think it's important for our student athletes to know, and this is going to be a message that we need to start encouraging with them, is that the school does have a when you're on campus, you will wear a mask policy. There are obviously some exceptions to that with the ADA disabilities and different things and ways that there are people who probably can go through the process of not wearing a mask. But our campus wants to stay open and they want to be open. And there's going to be some things that are coming out where we're going to ask for students and student athletes to pledge to do everything they can to make sure they're there. I mean, you look at what happened at Syracuse, different places like that. It's something that it's going to take some time, and people, it's a reminder. It's one of those things that's not natural. It doesn't just happen on its own. So you have to physically remind yourself of the things that you need to do. And I think all of us are that way. It's easy, to just wake up and walk out of your house and not have your mask with you. It's easy to be in your office by yourself and have something come up that you need to walk out of the office and forget to grab your mask and put it on. And so it's reminders, and I think it's being polite and courteous, but I do think that our student athletes are going to be scrutinized more than other people. And so it's important for them to actually lead the cause and show that, hey, we're bought in. We're all into this mask idea, and we want it because we want a season. I think there was a great story in one of our local newspapers about a high school just a little ways away from here where a few student athletes stood up before a football game and basically called out the adults in there and said, hey, listen, we know that there's difference in opinions on whether you should wear a mask or not. But the reality is, if that gives us the best chance of having this only opportunity that we have, I only get one senior year. If wearing a mask gives me a better opportunity, a better chance for that to happen, I want it to happen. And I think that's the attitude we need to have as a group, that if wearing masks gives Dre and gives Morgan and every student athlete here a better chance of actually being able to compete in a sport that they've loved for so long, it's worth the sacrifice for me.
Morgan, I'm curious about the mental health aspect of this for you guys, because I'll be the first to admit, I sit here at work and I have my tweet deck up and my Twitter feed just scrolls. And, about a month ago, when you're seeing all these conferences cancel games and, you're seeing all that pull through, pretty much on a daily basis, it felt like every day there was another conference that postponed something or moved something back or changed this, changed that. For you guys, how hard is it to see that go on across the NCAA and, not let it just kind of affect your attitude on a day-to-day basis?
I'm not going to lie. When our season got cut, it did affect me. And I was just like, are you kidding? Like, it's done, but like, we can't dwell on the past. And when I saw the past month of all the other conferences cutting or postponing their programs or the fall sports or whatever, I remembered Scott was like, you know what, this isn't for us. We are a spring sport. Let's still practice like we're going to have a season. We still have stuff to work for. Let's go. Let's get back in the gym and let's go. And that's kind of always been our mindset. Like, we're not cut yet. We still are working for like we have a season. We're not cutting down the workouts. We're not making lifts easier. We're not doing any of that. We're working out as if we're still going to have a season in January.
Dre, kind of, moving forward, obviously the fall sports get moved back. You guys would be next up. And so kind of moving forward, kind of where's your head at? Where's your mindset at? Things possibly could change. You see it on Twitter. I mean, yesterday the NCAA made some comments about possibly changing the basketball season. Kind of, how are you keeping yourself grounded and motivated through all this?
One day at a time for me. Just going there, and every day, as having this taken away from us already, just every day I'm just reminding myself, man, we're so lucky to be here. This could end at any moment, and I'm aware of that, but at the same time, I don't let that affect. I'm here for a reason, to get my education and to play basketball and to move up in this thing. And, I'm not going to let those aspirations and dreams be deterred because of situations that I can't control. So I'm going to control what I can control. And every day I'm going to be the best version of me. I'm going to encourage my teammates to do the same thing. And, every day, we just have an opportunity to get better. So until that time comes where they say we can't play or can play, I think we're going to be ready regardless for whatever's thrown at us.
Morgan, how do you guys feel? Obviously, school will be starting here in a couple weeks. Excited to have everyone back on campus, but obviously you look around the nation, there's some trepidation about, seeing other campuses come back. How do you guys feel like you can take a lead and set an example of, the best ways to respond to this and get other students to buy into, living a safe lifestyle here on campus?
I think, like Todd said, it's going to be up to us to follow the guidelines and to wear a mask. And I think if all the student athletes can buy in, then I think that will encourage students to as well. Because the student population loves coming to athletic events. It's part of college. Like, they love coming and watching us. And it's a thing, if we all mask up and they all mask up, they get to come and watch us and we get to come and perform for them. So I think as long as all the student athletes follow the guidelines, wear their mask at campus, wear their mask walking into grocery stores all the time, and they take the lead and they show other students, like, yeah, we're not just doing it because we have to, or we're not just doing it for show. Like, we're actually doing it because we want to have a season. We are buying in, we're all in. I think that the student population will then follow our example and lead. And at the end of the day, we can only control what we do. We can't physically go over to them and put a mask on and say, keep it on. Like, we can't do that. Like, we can control what we do at the end of the day and hoping that they follow what we do.
Well, guys, I appreciate you all taking the time to stop in and talk about this. I know it's not exactly an easy topic to talk about. It was a tough stretch for everybody, but as we get back going here, we're really excited, and hopefully we're back on the court here soon, Dre, and we just kind of keep it rolling from there. So I appreciate all three of you taking the time to talk with us today here on the first episode of the Storm the Sky podcast, and hopefully we'll have you all back on soon.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to the Storm the Sky podcast. Thanks again to Jimmy John's, our presenting sponsor of today's show. Get Freaky Fest sandwiches today. Order online or with the app for Freaky Fast delivery. Jimmy John's in Cedar City. We will be back next week with episode 2 of the Storm the Sky podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.